So I finally moved into the no longer abandoned store, and I've already been living here for quite a few days. I got most of my stuff set up to a usable extent, but before that was even possible, there was still a really big issue yet to be solved that I didn't mention in the previous video, which was that there was only one working electrical socket. The only other one was in this electrical shield, but that went downstairs with an extension cord to give power to the water pump. But luckily, after some electrical work, which I did not do, most of these new wires were provided with power, and even the basement got its own sockets, so I was finally able to plug in the water heater as well. This also meant that now it was finally possible to install some new electrical sockets upstairs as well, and I got these really nice ceramic retro looking black ones that I think go really well with the rest of the room, and I just personally really like the fact that they're ceramic, as it's kind of nostalgic for me. Also, washing dishes with the newly installed warm water is also pretty nice, but just like I expected, I would really have liked if one of the bowls was even just slightly bigger, as another 5 to 10 centimeters would make a huge difference. But it's still the biggest and most comfortable sink I've had. However, if I ever were to buy a sink again, I'd bear that in mind, once again. Overall, living here is pretty comfortable, as on warmer days, for example if it's around -1 degrees outside, it actually doesn't get that cold here. However, at one point it was -20 outside, and in those situations, in conjunction with the heat pump, I definitely need to use the fireplace with good quality wood pretty much all day as well. Also, the door and the windows let in quite a lot of cold air, so I bought a bunch of seals, and the results were pretty nice and definitely effective. However, it came out that the seals I bought were dummy thick for these windows, so I had to close them with completely reckless brute force, to the extent that I'm actually surprised that the windows didn't break, and I guess I just have to hope that over time the ceilings will give some leeway, as otherwise I don't want to open these windows ever again. As for the door, however, I had to handle it separately, as it let in quite a lot of cold air from the bottom, so I made this wooden threshold to attach to the back side of the door. And of course, I broke the first one, as I didn't drill a hole for the screw, so I had to cut a new piece and do it properly this time. And that one went in fine, but this piece had some unnecessary hole in it, so I tried using some floor fixing wax to fill it in, and in hindsight, it really looked like I was about to set the whole house on fire. Anyway, it was time to try putting the seal to the threshold and see if the door actually closes. Oh! And I guess I was that happy over it closing, until later that I kinda realized that maybe it closed even a bit too easily, but still I assumed that it should keep out at least 90% of the cold air that before just flowed in. However, in combination with all the other seals, there was a bit too much pressure on the hinge, and the door actually didn't open anymore, so if it weren't for the back door that was revealed in the previous video, I would have been locked in here. Luckily, after changing the entire lock system, it started working even better than before, so I guess it was fine after all. Anyway, now that I had sealed the door and the windows, there was still one incredibly big issue, which was that this room was incredibly echoey, to the extent that it wasn't even possible to record videos here, and another issue was that it's also a bit bright during the night, which makes it harder to sleep, so hopefully, to solve both issues at once, I decided to get some curtains. And those were the results. Honestly, I have some level of dissonance with having these curtains installed, as 9 times out of 10 I prefer windows without any coverings at all, but due to their practical value, they kinda grew on me, and I think they actually look pretty nice now. They're half a meter too long though, so eventually I do need to make them shorter somehow. They work really well for keeping the light out, and they also improve the insulation as well as keep out sound to some extent, but most importantly, they definitely made the room a lot less echoey. As a comparison, my current voice is what it sounds like with the curtains, and here is a recording from before. I finally moved into the no longer abandoned store, and I've already been living here for a few days. I also got a new protective floor cover for the chair, and I finally also got this lamp from the ceiling as those wires didn't even have power. Also, in case you're wondering what's going on with the bed, I'm borrowing both the bed and the sheets, so I have to work with what I have, and the same goes for the fridge. Oh, and as for the toilet being right next to the bed, hey man, it's just a great quality of life feature. Now, once again, I had to fix these holes in the wall that came from the initial attempt of trying to install these curtains on the wall, as the ceiling is a bit uneven. But came out that the wall was way worse than the ceiling, so it was much easier to just install them on the ceiling after all. Luckily, fixing these holes is pretty straightforward by now, especially with these pre-made mixtures that I didn't even know that existed. So all I had to do was just spread that over the holes, sand it down a bit, and finally paint it, and these were the results. Honestly, if you have some broken or cracked wall somewhere, just try fixing it, as it's pretty fun and barely takes any time. Anyway, after a few days of having used these curtains, I was literally able to feel the difference they made in terms of insulation, and while these curtains aren't completely dark, they still keep out the apocalypse that's going on outside, so that's pretty nice, I guess. I also discovered that these sections in this wall actually have a block of styrofoam in them, meaning that now, with the window seals and the curtains, this place is actually somewhat decently insulated for the time being. Though if I wanted to improve the insulation even more, this sauna here definitely needs a door as well. Other than that, I've gotten pretty comfortable with living here already, and the fact that I'm living here at all is pretty crazy to think about, as when I started this project, renovating this place was just an idea. It wasn't something that I saw a clear path for, and I had no clue if I'd actually succeed, yet gradually this place has transformed into a completely livable house. Well, it is kinda missing a shower, but that's for the future, I suppose. It's really interesting to look back at the first videos, because not only does everything look completely different, but I also still remember how I had absolutely no clue what to expect. In fact, I actually almost quit after the first episode, as I didn't really know how to proceed, but luckily I kept moving on one random step at a time, hoping that eventually this room will actually turn into something, and here I am, making this video from the same room where before I was just removing dust from. I was also pretty uncertain how this video series will turn out, as it was really different from anything I've made thus far, but I'm so glad I still ended up making it, as I really like to reminisce, and it already feels so nostalgic looking back at this beginning episode. I still remember the atmosphere this place had as the summer wind breezed through it, but I can't believe it was this green outside. I almost even forgot the whole ordeal with the storks, who will also surely be back once the spring comes as well. And while there still is quite a lot of work to go, I'm going to stop the video here, as unfortunately progress from now on will slow down quite a bit, meaning that I just won't have enough footage for such long videos in such a short amount of time. But now that I actually moved in here, I have so many other videos I want to make as well, meaning that I'll most likely see you in some other video quite soon.